I would love to see Resident Evil 1 in the style of 2 and 3 remake, but I also think that there would be a chance that I would hate it. Is that weird to say?
Yeah, that's true with anything.
Well, yes, but like 2 remake is so perfect.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and reel you in right there. There are more, right?
What?
There are more.
More Resident Evils than what here?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
So we will come back to it.
Well, yeah. I'm just saying, like a remake of 1 in the style of the remakes, I think would.
I love you. You're talking in circles.
I mean, I talk in circles a lot.
No, well, Resident Evil is one of these things where it's like when we get you going, it's like having a little train on a circle track and losing the remote. So.
Yeah, it just, I don't know, man. Like, I think what makes the first one, even the first remake, so good, is that it stayed so true to the original, but added like more, which is what I mean. 2 remake, I don't think 2 remake added more, but it refined everything and just like put a little bow on top. And 3 remake, we're not going to talk about that one. They just took shit out of that one. They didn't add anything. They just took it out. And 4 remake was just like very close to which I'm shocked that they kept some of the stuff in. Like, I'm actually kind of shocked, but
I'm just going to go out there and say you can only regurgitate the same thing so many times.
Yes. Which is like, but that's the thing with 4 remake, when they announced that they were remaking 4, I was like, why?
Yeah, and then you loved it.
And then I played it and I was like,
which that's what I'm saying, like I think we're at a point in game development where it makes sense to take the old stuff and bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we're going to go and make any leaps and bounds between here and 10 years from now.
Yeah.
So it's like if we were going to do like a remake, maybe we should stop and think about that for a second.
So I think if they were to remake the first one, like they would remake the remake, which is stupid to say. But if they were to do that, the only reason that you would do that is to basically take like the legacy of your game and your series and just everything that you've done and just put it all in like the same style. So when somebody comes to and is like, I want to play every single Resident Evil game, it's not such a jarring experience from beginning to the end. So like eventually they would have to basically remake a good chunk of them.
Here's an idea.
That are canon at least.
What if instead they did a whole new story that fit perfectly in the canon?
Mm-hmm.
It was called Resident Evil 1 and 5/8.
I would sue Capcom for damages.
It would be like it would. So, because I mean, like in context, there's what I think it's like a 3-month period between 1 and 2.
No.
And then 2 and 3 are back to back.
Yeah. 3 months. Yeah, July,
so,
August.
I mean,
2 months.
There's timeline there
Because it was July, and then everything started happening at the end of September in 2. Right?
Yeah.
Am I
so
remembering
right there,
that correctly?
you have like August.
I mean, not much is happening.
You can, dude. You can literally do whatever you want.
So they have 1, and then they have 2. There's 3 takes place during 2, and then Outbreak takes place during 2, and then Umbrella, what's it called? Operation Raccoon City takes place during 2.
So that's what I'm saying. What if like 1 and 5/8 was like the Umbrella perspective of what happened between 1 and 2 to set up for 2?
I don't think you could make a game like that. I don't think so.
I bet you I could.
Well, then you do it, pitch it to Capcom, and one thing that you said about you can only regurgitate as much, like so much stuff before it's just like, okay, what are we doing here?
You can only regurgitate the same thing so many times.
Yes. So one thing that I think game developers in particular need to start looking at is, what do people want and what have they been crying for so much? So Capcom,
Who?
your fan base.
Right. So who?
What do you mean?
There's so many different fan bases
So-
in that statement.
So yes, there are different like there's I'll give you an example. They have been shouting from the rooftops in unison to remake Resident Evil Code Veronica, to remake Resident Evil Outbreak, and to remake Dino Crisis. You ask any fan of survival horror or a Capcom fan, if you would find them and be like, what do you want Capcom to do? Those 3 answers are going to be like, bam, bam, bam. Capcom has yet to do any of that. If they remade Dino Crisis, it would go bonkers. If they remade Code Veronica, people would lose their fucking minds.
Here's the thing, though. From a product standpoint, you're focused on existing customers.
The existing customers are shouting from the rooftops to
That's
remake
fine.
those games.
And me, as a product manager at Capcom, I would love to keep my existing customers. The truth of the matter is, most of my existing customers are probably going to buy what we release that will attract new customers.
Here's all Capcom needs to do. Do that.
Well, okay, so you just spent like several tens of millions of dollars right there.
Huh?
To do that, that's, tens of millions of dollars.
Well, you're going to make that if you just put your energy into Monster Hunter. It's one of the biggest franchises ever. Like, if there's an online community playing a game, people are playing Monster Hunter. It's massive.
So it's already released?
They've had multiples.
Right.
Yeah.
Why are we going to keep doing it?
Because you have to, people, it's a game that takes a lot of time, and people sink thousands of hours into that game.
Sure. Absolutely.
And then you have to release a new one.
What if I can come up with a new IP that gets me an additional 100,000 players?
It's not going to happen.
Why not?
Because people have tried that and failed miserably, especially lately.
Fortnite.
That's not a new IP.
But there was a time that
At the time, yes.
There was a time that
But
it was.
But you have the people that are trying to remake that Fortnite feel.
That's exactly what I'm
Concord.
saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's like the Call of Duties, the Fortnites, the Resident Evils, the Monster Hunters, the Dino Crisis, the shooters. We love them very, very dearly, and we want more of it. We all represent existing customers. And if, that's not what product at a company is trying to do. They are trying to find ways to expand business. And I think that it doesn't lie within, being the next Fortnite or being the next.
Then why does every game developer keep trying to do it?
Because they don't have the appropriate people in like running this show over there.
That's what I'm saying. So, okay.
Like the people that know this are over at SpaceX frickin' bringing a damn thruster back to chopsticks.
So, let's just keep it on Capcom. So, Capcom has Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter is massive. People love Monster Hunter. If you made a definitive Monster Hunter where you can keep adding content, you can make it like don't make it a full live service game. Make it a semi live service game, because as far as I know, Monster Hunter doesn't have like microtransactions. I could be very wrong on that, but as far as I'm aware, it's not like a microtransaction type of game. But if you made it to where like you don't have to buy these things, but if you're a fan, if that's your game, you're going to spend money on those. Like, it's like Counter-Strike. You don't have to buy these skins, but if that's your game, people spend thousands of dollars on fucking skins.
Right, but here's the other thing.
People spend millions
of
dollars
other thing
on skins.
To understand is, like, I don't need to make a new game to introduce microtransactions.
No. So what I'm getting at is, so you have this game that is like your cash cow. You can count on that to bring in revenue. Okay? You're like, if you have this game that's bringing you multiple $1 million per year, okay? You can stop, look at what you are doing. You're like, okay, we want to have a team focused on Monster Hunter and really doing that. We want a team over here working on a Code Veronica remake or a Dino Crisis remake or whatever, other thing. And then we want this team here to try and brainstorm or take this idea of new IPs and really focus on these new IPs to make them good. Because the problem is there's all these people that are trying to push out these new IPs that are like not even half baked. And then they come out and they're just garbage.
So I'm going to give you some perspective into that based on some statistics I just pulled up.
Oh boy.
Just because again, software development is what I do. Not games, but that's what I do. How much do you think it costs to develop Horizon Forbidden West?
That's probably easily like, what? It took them $250 million to do Concord, so I would say probably on the high side, like $500 million.
212.
212 million?
Yes.
Okay.
Last was Part 2, 220 million.
Okay.
So, taking a game from concept to reality. Roughly,
so when we're looking at these are massive AAA titles. Like, massive, massive. How much was Horizon Zero Dawn to make? The first one.
Here's the thing, though. As a software engineer, I don't get any cheaper when I work on dog shit. I still cost the same to code.
I understand that. But the thing about it is people are trying to take these games that lack just creativity, they lack gameplay, they lack
a lot.
A lot of things.
That's
because they're trying to just move them along because they've got their hands in too many things.
Well, I think what they're trying to do is build a $220 million game out of $100 million.
Yeah, everybody's trying to do that.
It don't work.
No, it doesn't. It's like somebody coming to me and being like, "Hey, I want you to do a $1,000 job on my car, but I only want you to charge $120." And I'm like, I'm going to do a $120 job. like a $120 job.
Sony,
I'm not going to do a $120 job like I do a $1,000 job. That's not how that works.
See, I'm gonna do the like top end, regardless, because that's my name on, like that's my reputation on whatever I'm working on. Sony plans to spend $2.13 billion in the next 3 years on game development alone.
Wait, say that again.
Sony plans to spend $2.13 billion on game development alone over the next 3 years.
Sure.
That's a fuck ton of money.
So that's what, like
40% of their budget.
So that's what, like 3 to 4 games, depending.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and that's Sony, who just dropped Astrobot.
So you sub out the work. So Sony isn't doing all of this in house.
That actually makes it more expensive.
But not if it's a Sony owned studio.
No, it's still more expensive. Believe it or not.
If Sony owns the studio, wouldn't it just cost the same amount as if it would Sony working on it?
No, because the other studio, like the sub, actually has their own overhead costs that they have to assume.
But if Sony owns it, it's Sony's overhead cost.
No, because it's not on the same. So it's not on the same budget. If you would like, let's say, give me an example of somebody who, like of a studio that you're referring to, where Sony owns it, where it's a subsidiary.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say it's called
Gorilla. I think, does Sony own Gorilla at this point?
We'll say for this what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say they own Gorilla. Gorilla has their own offices. They have their own, support staff. They have their own budget. They have their own executive board. They have all this stuff. The executive board doesn't actually do anything other than leadership and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So all of their salaries and everything have to be paid out of what they make on profit from the development teams itself. So even though it's a subsidiary, yes, does it boil down to being Sony's money and kind of costing them the same? Not really, because it's actually cheaper for Sony to just hire a developer on themselves at, say, $150,000 a year and eat that loaded rate of, their benefits, their PTO, their insurance might be, a loaded rate of maybe 20 to 30%. Whereas with Gorilla, they are still assuming that overhead, but they also have to pay for the cost of that office space that they now have.
Sure.
Or for that, the technical capabilities of the developer, providing them with a laptop, providing them with hardware, any of the licensing they need. That studio probably has its own set of PlayStation licensing for the development purposes.
Sure.
So at that point, Gorilla might say, okay, for every hour this developer works, you're going to pay us $130. Whereas at Sony, every hour the developer works would be, 180 divided by 2,080 hours, probably around like $70-$80.
Sure.
But you got to remember, with Sony, if they hire them themselves, then they have to do all that work themselves and managing them in the HR department, all of, coordinating their PTO. The administrative shit is just a headache. So by the time that you're done, with your yearly dose of Excedrin, it might make sense to spend a little more and sub it out. But yeah, I mean that's a cog in the machine. Subcontracting is literally just a way to hide money, especially if you own the sub.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry for that rant, but
no, I mean it makes sense because like I would assume that if Sony owns this studio, but they're not working in-house at Sony, then it would just be like Sony funds this studio to run. Like they're their own like little ecosystem there, and with their budgets and the way that everything goes, because it's like Sony, this big thing in the middle with all these little webs out, but the money just filters out to these companies. They have, these budgets, and they operate on as their own entities. But in the end, it just goes back to It just feeds back into this giant machine.
Yeah, I mean, Sony, in that instance, the studio would be owned by Sony. The studio would still have its own bank accounts, its own profit and loss statement, and things like that. Sony could certainly, pull money from it whenever they would need to. They own it.
Yeah.
But the likelihood of Sony actually doing that is probably slim to none.
So I'll go back to what Colin said up here about Modern Warfare 2 Remastered for their multiplayer. There were free mods for it that you could download for free,
Right.
because people were craving playing Modern Warfare 2 Remastered multiplayer, and Activision shut it down because it would be deterring people's focus from Black Ops 6 and people wanting to play that. So they'd be like technically losing money because people would be playing this versus the new shiny thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little different when you look at something like Call of Duty, where like that's like you need people to play the new game because that's how that game exists. It's a multiplayer only. If people aren't playing it, it doesn't exist.
Well, yeah, it doesn't make sense. I was very surprised. I didn't realize Microsoft tried to purchase Activision.
Yes. Yep.
And then the FTC said, "Oh hell no," which was a good move on the FTC's part. The government's actually, doing the right thing, and I think I think that for the most part they're in the right place with a lot of things. But there's no advantage to when you're a game like Call of Duty to sit there and leave your servers up for your old games.
Yeah. So
now, maybe for like the last version. Like the very last game before this one, sure.
Yeah, like this. I mean, Modern Warfare 2 Remastered wasn't that long ago. I mean, it probably was at this point. But, so, like, with that, so there's been countless times where people have done Resident Evil, like, they do, like, randomizers. They do Resident Evil, like, HD projects where they have gone through and they basically somebody has taken Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 1 remake and put it in Unreal Engine and like have basically done the entire job of making this game nice and polished. There's countless people that are doing that for Resident Evil, for Call of Duty, for multiple games where they basically are doing the legwork for Capcom. They're like, look, here's what it could be. So if somebody were to go and just do a remake of Code Veronica, like from the ground up, they would just remake it on their own accord. And Capcom were if they were to send it to Capcom, or they were to somehow be able to get in contact with Capcom and be like, look, I have this beta version. Not even a beta, but like the early stages of this. It's in the engine that you use. What do you guys think? If Capcom were to take that and be like, all right, let's take a look at this here. And they were to go through and be like, it would take us this much money, this much time to take this thing that this guy made and just refine it and polish it and then put it out. Wouldn't that just be like a smart thing to do? Like, because one, it cost you $0 to allow somebody to basically just do something for free. And there are many people that are out there that are very capable of making their own thing.
Absolutely.
It's just you just can't make it and then sell it on your own because it's not your property to do so.
So I am gonna address that. If that were to happen, one, that's not what's really happening, is because a lot of people will go out there, do exactly what you're saying, and then they'll, put it out there for people to play. They're not actually like releasing source code and saying, Here, look, we've got this, we can build it, you can build from it, you can do this. They're not sending it to Capcom and being like, here, I just want to see it out here. Because I think Capcom probably would say, oh, this is 90% done. Let's go ahead and just, make sure it meets our best practices, revise the code, clean it up, test it, and, kind of take it the 10% to the end and call it a day. And they may even offer, some sort of kickback to whoever did that if they were, they don't have to. But I genuinely believe that if that's how it went down, that's probably something that they would be open to, because outside of the gaming community, open source software is literally what has made the world what it is today. You can go out and find these just free libraries of code that enable you to do things just by plugging it into your code and then utilizing it.
Yeah.
And you don't pay anything for it, and it's all in this good faith where it's like, hey, we're going to take care of each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really what's happening. People are doing it all the way. They want to get it done because they want to see it, complete and full to whatever you want to call it. And in a lot of cases, they don't have the resources to test it. They don't have the resources to vet it. Some of them might be brilliant with their coding, and even though they're brilliant, coding is one of those things where you can do the same thing 100 different ways. And we lost Colin because of my rant, but I guess my point is that what you're saying makes sense, and I think it would work. I don't think anybody's trying it because it doesn't make
you don't even have to send it to Capcom personally. Like, there are people that will, do these Resident Evil HD projects, or they will do.
Real quick, you do, because if you put it anywhere for anyone else to touch, you're a licensing violation.
Yes, 100%. So that's what I was getting at. So, like, say I'm just like this prodigy, like, dude that just sits in his basement all day and just programs and just has this passion to create games. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm like a huge, massive Resident Evil fan, and I'm like, I need to have a Code Veronica remake. I just have to have it.
Make it.
So I go through and I spend 2 years of my life just making this thing as good as I can, as detailed as I can, every little bit, the story, I go through everything to make just this version that's just like good, I don't go crazy with mocap or voice acting or what have you. Like, I just make this version that's basically a hyper crazy good version of Code Veronica, just remade in this new engine. Okay, so that's pretty much like what the beta of a game would be. Like, I've gone through, I've put in the textures, I've done all of that. People can play it, enjoy it as like a full blown game. But it's not the type of game that you would get from Capcom, where it's like mocap, or they do like all brand new voice actors, and they have like just better tools to do the job just a little bit better. Okay, so what if I spent the 2 years of my life just gunning for that and just doing that, and I put it up on a website, people can download it free of charge, and they can play it. Okay,
there's your problem.
People do that.
Yep.
Okay. Some developers could care less. They're like, fuck it, whatever. I don't care. Some are just like, no. Cease and desist. Axe it.
Wouldn't you be?
So if I'm Capcom in this position now, okay, and if I hear buzz about this Code Veronica remake, and I'm I'm at Capcom. I don't have this going in the pipeline. It's not even a thought in my brain. I'm just like, whatever. I'm like, let's see it. And I go to the website and I download it, and I sit here with a couple colleagues, and I'm, one of them's playing, and I'm just kind of watching. And I'm like, I'm looking at the site to see how many downloads it has, what's the traffic on it, are people loving this? I want to see people talk about it. I'm going to go to blogs and see what they're saying about it, what do they have to say about it, how many people have downloaded it. I'm running the gamut on this thing. Okay, I'm doing all of the research. I'm writing down the numbers. I'm like, okay, so somebody took our IP and they took it upon themselves to do a remake. Okay, I'm okay with it, because as a developer who has this huge franchise that people love and they crave for more, it keeps my franchise alive. So if I were to announce a new Resident Evil game, I know people are still interested in it, okay? If I were to decide to remake a Resident Evil game, I know that the demand is there. So if I'm looking at the numbers and it's like 1.5 million downloads, and people are saying like, this is really good, like you only spent 2 years on, and like I'm just reading all the positive people, like there's just tons of positive reviews about it. The people like, I love it. I'm going to sit down with those colleagues and be like, okay, so who uploaded this? Get in contact with him.
You may not be able to trace him.
Maybe not.
Typically not.
If not,
most people typically try to keep themselves.
If not, maybe I put a calling out of, hey, whoever made this, reach out to us. Send us a tweet, send us an email, reach out, call our support line, whatever the case may be. Okay? I want to be in contact with the person that did this.
I get that.
So, or I go the route of, okay, I see people like that. Leave it there. Okay? But, just wait. Leave it there. Okay? Just for now. Because I feel like this day and age, if you're a developer and you go after that kind of shit, it immediately turns your fan base on you.
Nope.
100% it does.
So you're never buying a... So if this happens and Capcom has it taken down, you're not going to buy any more Resident Evil shit?
Let me finish.
I'm just asking.
Let me finish, okay? So somebody, I decide, okay, we're leaving this up. Call this team, get them working on a Code Veronica remake.
No point.
Listen. Just listen, okay? Analyze everything that's on there. Analyze everything that we've done in 2 remake, 4 remake, and unfortunately 3 remake. Look at what we've done there, okay? What did he do in here that was good, okay? How can we make it 10 times better? Okay? So get that together, okay? Get a good gameplay trailer and let's put it out.
What you're forgetting is that you're going to spend $100 million to do that.
But guess what? No matter how many people have played this guy's version of the remake, every single one of those people that played that are going to jump the second those pre-orders go live.
Why?
Because Capcom finally did it.
Would you spend $60 just for a name?
I would spend $150 to $200.
Okay, that's you.
A bunch of people would follow suit.
I'm not denying that there's probably 500,000 to 1 million people that are going to do that.
Every single person that played that are going to... They couldn't click fast enough for that.
There's a whole lot of speculation.
And I'll tell you why. Because if it's gotten to the point where somebody else has taken the liberties to just go and do it, that means they've gotten tired of trying to get their attention to do it. Because I will tell you right now, any Resident Evil fan that is in existence wants to see Code Veronica remade. It's a lot of people's favorite Resident Evil.
I'm not denying any of that, and I'm not denying this, but what I am telling you is that, like, it's a hell of a lot of risk to take something that's already done and do it again.
But if the person that has made your franchise, your favorite franchise, says, "Hey, we're doing it. We've heard you. We're doing it."
That's fine.
People are going to just be basically at their doorstep, just like, "We're ready to kiss your feet."
After they already played one?
Yes.
Why?
Because it's not going to be as good as they're going to do it.
Okay. I mean, to what degree? One, you don't know that.
100%. There's no doubt. Because if you've already created a competition, so as the developer, so like, you could send the cease and desist of, like, take it down. But right now, with how rampant, like, dude, Nintendo, people fucking hate Nintendo because they do it to the max degree. They don't even send the letters. They just go straight to lawsuit.
I noticed.
And they're just out to ruin lives at this point.
I noticed they still buy Nintendo product.
Because you can't get it anywhere else.
Well, then, so be it. Like,
it's the same thing, though. Like, even if somebody made a fan remake, if the actual developer puts it out and says that we're going to do it, everybody that played it is just going to be like, yeah, 100%.
I
Day
disagree.
one buy.
I think there's a lot of people out there that'll be like, I don't need to spend $60 just to have the name brand. I'm personally the volition. If I'm at Capcom and that happens, I need that down yesterday, because every single one of those downloads is a potential sale that I'm missing. But also, yes, look for.
Alicia's like, all right, he needs his bottle. You're about to hear some screaming. Dude, when that boy's hungry, he's hungry.
I'll bet. But yeah, I need that down yesterday. I'm not taking the time to research it. I'm not taking the time to look it up, because that takes time, and the more time it's up, the more risk I'm assuming. And then, yes, absolutely, reach out to the guys, see what we can do.
So I think that if you try to get it taken down, or if you go the route of getting it taken down, you have to do it as quietly as possible.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not. First off, cease and desist on IP falls on the website that it's posted on, so we just need to contact the website, and they can have it down relatively quickly.
Yeah.
That doesn't guarantee that it's not going to get posted again.
Mm-hmm.
But, when you contact a website and you're like, yo, y'all are in violation of copyright law, people are typically like, oh, shit. I'm sorry, we didn't realize that happened.
Yeah.
Especially if it's like Capcom, But I agree. I think quietly is the key there.
Like, if you are going to take it down, you have to do it quietly, because the minute that it gets out of, like, Capcom goes after the person for fan-made Resident Evil game or whatever, like, people get salty real quick. But that's you're worried about losing sales on the fan-made game. I think you're going to lose more.
Nobody's getting Resident Evil anywhere else.
I understand.
And if they're so hell-bent to where they would spend $60 even if they already downloaded a free one, I guarantee you they're not going to stop buying it because I went after my own intellectual property.
I don't know. I think, like, especially in the time that we live in now, I think you have to really tread lightly in that. You have to go about it a certain way to, like, preserve the look and the integrity of your company, while also, like, trying to deliver that.
Cease and desist isn't a bad thing either.
No, it's
Like,
not. It's. I mean,
if I may,
most people can't look at something like that and understand why they're doing it. They're just like, you're
right.
because people have this many brain cells nowadays.
Well, I think they just don't have the right context. You know, for IP, most people don't have IP in their life. You know, as far as like a game is concerned. For a place like Capcom, the people that own Capcom, the people that work there, they have poured millions of dollars into that. They have poured, you know, probably millions of hours into that, developing it across multiple people. It's as if you were to write a 30-page thesis statement and somebody were to steal it out of your backpack and hand it in college in your place and take credit for it, and then you had no thesis to turn in yourself.
Yeah.
That would piss off anybody. So, except on this stage, it's, you know, we're not talking about a thesis. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars and, you know, millions of hours. And, like, just the scale is purely... So I think it's kind of... I agree with you. I don't think it's really so much that people don't have the brain cells. They just don't see it that way because it's a product.
People don't care to see it that way either.
Well, yeah, they don't see it creatively. They see it, you know, as something that sits on a shelf.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I can see where you're coming from with you know, if somebody's played it already, why are they going to go buy it? But
I wouldn't.
Well, you're not, like, I wouldn't consider you, like...
I'm not hardcore Resident Evil like you are.
Yeah, like, it's, you have to look at it through, like, that's your thing. Like, if somebody, like, you have a fan-made game, it's never going to be as
Would you
good.
have it taken down after you release yours? Or would you let it sit there and compete?
See, I think nowadays, like, it's not directly competing.
That's a choice, though.
Because you
don't know what the Capcom version's like until you buy it.
So at this point, the Resident Evil fan base has built, like, this community.
Okay.
Like, there's people that exist on YouTube that they made a fan film, okay, based off of The Keeper's Diary. It's arguably the most, like, famous file in any Resident Evil game.
How big is the fan base?
For Resident Evil or for the YouTube channel?
The channel.
Pretty big.
Like, I mean, well, like how big?
I don't know numbers.
Because I'm willing to bet you it's a fraction of the total sales of those games.
So, listen, okay. So they made a fan film. It's based off of The Keeper's Diary. So, The Keeper's Diary is a file you find in Resident Evil 1 that it's a guy that worked at Umbrella that describes, you know, a night that he had playing poker with these guys. Then some guy brought a biohazard suit to his room. He starts to feel itchy. He starts to, like, basically it's his story of how he went from being this worker to now turning into a zombie.
Right.
And the very last words that he types are itchy, tasty. Those are the last words. And it shows how even when he was basically all the way turned, like, he still had, like, that little bit of humanity left in him.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's among the Resident Evil community, everybody loves Itchy Tasty. It's, you know, there was a book that somebody wrote called Itchy Tasty. So they made a fan film. So they crowdfunded it. They raised more than they needed. And they made it, and they released it on YouTube. Fantastic. I mean, it's clearly, like, fan-made. Like,
how long is it?
I don't know, 15, 20 minutes.
So it's
So let's go the extra mile. So the person that plays the Keeper is the original, the FMV that plays in the beginning of Resident Evil, where it has the real life people. The guy that played Chris, that's the guy that plays the Keeper.
Okay.
So like you have that extra bit of fan service there, and so like they made this fan film based off of this. I mean, they had Jill dress up as Jill. They had a hunter, and then at the end, the guy that is like one of the runners of the channel, JJ, he comes in as like a janitor, and there's like blood splatter all over the window, and he comes in and he has like a squeegee, and he like cracks a beer and like takes a sip, puts it in his front pocket, and like squeegees the blood, and he's like, I'm not getting paid enough for this shit. And like it ends, and it's really well done. Like it's probably the best film adaptation of anything Resident Evil that's ever been done. Like Capcom hasn't come after them for it or anything like that. Like they've been doing more for the Resident Evil community than anybody could. And I think it's a healthy place for, like, it benefits Capcom to have these types of people that exist in the community to, you know, either bring new people in or keep existing people in.
Absolutely.
They have multiple interviews of like voice actors from Resident Evil games. Like they got the whole original cast from the FMV at the beginning. Everybody, Rebecca, Barry, well, everybody that's I guess still alive. I think there's a couple that passed away, but they have Chris, Jill, Rebecca. Like they've done so much. They've tracked them down too. They weren't credited in the game.
Wow.
So they tracked them down themselves and got in contact with them and then got them all reunited.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the fan group, I think it's great. I think it's important, and I think you guys definitely like are hardcore and like passionate about it. I still think it's a fraction of the total impact that the IP has on the world.
I think that if you're a diehard fan, you're eventually going to come across that kind of person. Like you're going to come across the Residents of Evil. You're going to come across the Ink Ribbon. You're going to come across Bakba Soup. Like there's these people that are staples in the Resident Evil community, from whether you're just speed running the game, whether you're creating content and going the extra mile because you have the funds and the experience to do so, or you're just making YouTube videos like Ink Ribbon about these deep dive facts or all these just like little intricate type of, you know, videos that he does.
Well, yeah, and I mean Capcom, there's really no IP there for them to come after because, you know, they don't own Jill Valentine and Chris Redfield 100%, and all that.
But
it didn't combat them for money.
So if that channel, you know, Residents of Evil, Ink Ribbon, Bakba Soup, they're going to play and stream them playing, you know, a HD project of Resident Evil 1, a fan-made remake of Code Veronica,
Still
this
combating.
and that. So
it's just going to push the fan remake. It's not going to actually make Capcom anything.
If Capcom were to remake, to do...
If Capcom was the one who remade it, yes.
If Capcom were to see that and be like, we're going to do the fucking remake.
Oh, no. If a remake were, like a fan remake were to hit a channel like that, it would be too late.
I don't think so.
Because that would hit so many people and it would just explode. It would be viral, for lack of a better term.
I think that if Capcom were to be like, okay, you know what? Here's our trailer. Here's the editions that you can pre-order. Pre-orders are now. That shit would be fucking gone.
Yeah, I still don't think that would be the case
a
fan remake go.
I think it would go. I think it would be better for Capcom.
You also have to consider the precedent you're setting with that. At that point, you're basically saying, "Oh yeah, remake our IP."
I, I don't
That's
think...
how the court's going to take it,
So,
though.
I think there's only a limited amount of things that the fans could do in that IP because there's only so much that they want.
I mean, so,
like I said, there's 3 things that people are going nuts for. It's an Outbreak remake because Capcom, for some reason, has always tried to push a multiplayer Resident Evil thing. And it's always been things that we don't want. We don't want player versus enemy multiplayer. We don't want PvP multiplayer. We don't want that. We want working together.
I mean, that's
you
the
know,
royal we,
like
but...
you did for PS2 with Outbreak.
So, you know what you could do as a fan? Instead of remaking the IP yourself because you love the IP, make your own damn game under the same premise.
Daymare 1998, I think is what it's called. That is basically a Resident Evil clone that a fan made.
Don't clone it.
It's not like it's its own thing, but it's like heavily inspired by Resident Evil.
There you go. The more of those come out and more people get traction with that, that's when Capcom's like, shit, what can we do? And you're not violating IP.
But you're still not giving the fans what they want.
Who isn't? Capcom or the Capcom or the fans? That's not true. They might. I guarantee. So if you push out 2 or 3 brand new Resident Evils that aren't truly Resident Evil, but everybody knows it's Resident Evil and it gains traction, eventually Capcom is going to be like, what can we do quick?
The success of 2 remake, success of 4 remake. Look at those 2 and be like, what other ones could we remake that people would like? Let's see what the fans are saying. Oh, Code Veronica. Oh, Outbreak. Which ones do we want to do? It's not hard. Like, you have, like, people are there.
I don't think it's a question of what.
Like, at this point, people are outside Capcom offices just with their wallets, just waving it in the air.
It's not a question of what. I think they know what would come next. I think it's just a matter of, does it make sense to do this right now?
Yes.
For you. But for them... dude, it's like gas prices. They're never coming back down because they know we're going to pay what we pay. Like, they've got you on a little string wrapped around their finger, and they're going to play it as long as they can.
At some point, though, like, you have to let us grab the carrot every once in a while. You have to give us the carrot.
They do. You're still here. You're, like, going on about Resident Evil for at least an hour, so...
But, like, the things that I'm going on about, like... You know, it's because I have nostalgia for the franchise.
You still there?
But beyond that, like, I think I'm more passionate about Resident Evil now because of like these things in the community that I've seen.
And that's great. I agree. It's beneficial. Capcom just lets that be its thing. Like that's the best thing they can do is keep their hands off of it.
That's where things thrive, is when you have a community that actually cares.
Yes.
And it has to be a healthy community, not a toxic community. Like, there are toxic Resident Evil fans for sure, where they're just bitching and complaining about every little thing and every little detail. You're going to get those in all kinds of fan bases, but holy shit, there's some that are just like, really? Like, we're focusing on that?